What happened to me when I was growing up, it doesn't take much to connect the dots. The idea that the northern states are more progressive doesn't paint the full picture, because if you had asked either of my parents if they were liberal and progressive, they would have told you, of course. But also, I distinctly remember my dad being obsessed with the idea that I might not be straight. I remember saying, I love you to a friend on the phone. Like, we're talking on the phone, an old school landline and everything. And my dad is like, are you a lesbian? And it was just that kind of jarring moment of, I didn't realize that I can't say I love you to somebody unless it's romantically involved. There was no place for any level of queerness. The homophobia was real. It was all about, men are men and women are women. My dad struggled with a very severe alcohol addiction, like all alcoholic families do. Everyone orbits around the alcoholic, and everyone has that role to play in order to keep equilibrium in the house. Then there was my mom, who, looking back on it, was showing signs of early onset Alzheimer's. We just didn't know it at the time. It just looked like this was this extremely emotionally volatile woman who was becoming very paranoid and very suspicious, and kind of low-key saw her own daughter as a threat. That was a house that you walked on eggshells, because you never knew what kind of dad you were getting. You never knew what kind of mom you were getting. Am I getting the sweet and loving and just, slightly dopey mom? Or am I going to get the one who's screaming in my face? Am I going to get the jovial and charismatic dad who likes to dance the twist? Are you going to get the dad who's going to smack you with his full body weight because you dared to say something with a certain tone he didn't like? And it was extremely unpredictable. No wonder the nervous system protects you by making you think that you just don't deserve love. If we had that level of higher cognitive processing when we were children, we would have been able to, nip it in the bud. But those are all happening unconsciously. To really sit in the heartbreak of, I deserved love, I deserved protection, I deserved parents who gave me a safe and stable upbringing, and they failed.
So don't test me.
I would get into these relationships and I would pour so much love into these people and lose myself and justify not being regarded, not being treated right, and realizing the reason why I would pour so much of myself into those relationships is because I felt, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of being loved. If I give them all of my love, they will stick around, and their company is kind of like being loved. It was in my father's passing and finding all of this literature on adult children of alcoholics, realizing that I'm not broken, I'm not weird, I'm not the anomaly. This is so common that there's books about this, there's web pages about this. And that was the start of realizing what effect my dad had on me, what effect my mom had on me, what effect that childhood in general had on me. Just because you cognitively know better doesn't necessarily mean that it's truly taken to heart, because I'm learning this at, 28, 29, 30, and it is not until 36 that I am realizing what patterns I really have been repeating, even though I knew better at that point. When it comes to this conundrum of, am I just being too overprotective when it comes to any potential future romantic love? In some ways, it's almost too soon to tell. And that is something my own therapist had to remind me, because I kept talking about how I am worried that we've passed the point of no return and I'm never going to trust romantic love again. So this is just a lost cause. And she's like, you recently got out of an abusive relationship. And even though that was, almost a year ago, you've been dealing with the echoes and the fallout the entire time. You are in a place right now where healing is of the utmost importance. There will come a time where the healing that you have done will be sufficient enough that you will be in a place where you can ask that question. Right now, everything is still so raw that it would make sense why you'd be so protective as to not let romantic love into your life. The goal is to build yourself up, and then we can ask that question. But I also don't think I'm going to be looking for it, because one of the things I realized I was doing was when I'm looking for love, it would always be well, this is close enough. I don't trust myself to not accidentally fall into that, because I think that's human nature. If you're looking for something and you're not finding it, you unconsciously start to lower your expectations, lower your requirements, lower that bar for entry. In the very beginning, it was, if there's an emotional connection, I feel safe. Therefore, I will feel sexual. And then realizing it gets a little bit more complicated. Well, I feel that emotional connection, but this person really betrayed me. And it just closes down the body, closes down the desire. I needed more to feel safe each time. I have to basically be convinced this is my forever love before I will feel sexual attraction. And the reason why I feel like it tipped the scales into that more gray sexual spectrum is that, at least right now, still recovering from an abusive relationship on top of all these other bad relationships that had come before it, I don't know what that threshold would even look like for me to truly feel safe enough in romantic love that I could also then open up my body. At first, it really bothered me because I felt like something got taken away from me. But as I see it, it has given me a chance to really appreciate all the other ways that you can be attracted to people. You're drawn to them because of their energy. You are drawn to them because of soul connection. And those can sometimes go hand in hand with sexual attraction, but it doesn't have to. I am super attracted to them in all these other ways. I don't know if I want, our, private parts to be mashing together, if you will. It's a complicated world, but in all these complicated categories, this is how people end up feeling valid and realizing that they're not crazy or broken or alone. It's so common, we have terms for it. One of the ways that I would dismiss the idea that I wasn't straight was, well, I never looked across the room at a beautiful woman and went, I would like to have sex with her. But then I was like, but I've never done that with a guy either. I've never looked across the room at a beautiful man and went, I want to have sex with him. It was always through connection. That spontaneous, attraction just doesn't exist for me. The difference between being with a man versus a woman, there's so many layers to what happens in a relationship that it almost feels reductionistic to try to create that line, because there were elements of my marriage where my now ex-husband was as emotionally present and loving and attuned as I'm used to women being loving and attuned and emotionally present. And then likewise, there have been women that I've crossed paths with who have been as misogynistic and nasty and exploitative as we traditionally ascribe to men. I think the one thing that I've found that is different between dating men and dating women is that I am much quicker to defer out for men. Let the patriarchy be the patriarchy and let him have the power, basically. And I'll be a little more willing to let him be the authority on matters, versus when I am with women, I'll be a little bit more objective and a little bit less likely to go, well, you're the one who metaphorically wears the pants, so here you go. With a woman, at least for me, it's a lot harder to fall into those unconscious patterns. I definitely know that when it comes to that aesthetic attraction, the attraction to their beauty, I am so much quicker to just enjoy the beauty of a woman. Whereas with even the most handsome of handsome man, there's a little bit of a standoffishness, I don't trust a guy who's too pretty. I almost can't be attracted to it because I'm just like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? In that regard, I have the aesthetic preference for women and being able to celebrate that beauty and take that in for the celebration. Whereas for a guy, it is a little like, oh God, he's good looking. How has he been using that to exploit women? Which is not fair. But when you've had a lot of, especially handsome men, use their looks to exploit women en masse, it's so easy to kind of go, you might be pretty in theory, but Emotionally, I have found that there is a grounded element to healthy masculinity that serves as a good anchor to my more chaotic energy. And healthy masculine energy can be in either or all genders. I'm realizing as I'm talking about it that it's almost this idea of the healthy father who is able to serve as that anchoring force, essentially, when the kid is having the nightmare and is needing the parent to reassure, there's no monster under the bed kind of deal. One of my friends, who's a woman, is told constantly that she gives off daddy energy. And it's true. She has that grounded, healthy masculinity about her, and that we can call daddy energy, if you will. I am wondering if I am doing that defaulting to the patriarchy, because to equate healthy masculinity to groundedness, is that then equating healthy femininity to the more chaotic, ungrounded energy? And I'm not liking realizing that that might be these defaults, because I am attracted to grounded energy. But why does it have to be masculine grounded energy? Like, why is grounded energy then a masculine trait, when more often than not, the men that I'd be dating are anything but grounded? In some ways, all of that is still an enigma to me. I don't have much of an answer to even the emotional part. I know what I want out of a partner. I want the emotional presence. I want the groundedness. I want that ability to balance objectivity with sensitivity and empathy and compassion. And it's hard to pinpoint which gender would best exemplify that. And, is that healthy masculinity? Is that healthy femininity? It can be all of that. I think that is a huge reason why it does feel a lot up in the air as to what my preference would be. And in some ways, I kind of like that. If romantic love comes into my life, I want to be able to sense it by the energy, not by the package. I want to see those values, the compassion, the groundedness, the empathy. I want to sense those things and then go, oh, this is my person. Excellent. As opposed to, that's a woman. A woman's going to be more emotionally present in this relationship. Excellent. Or, hey, that's a guy. The guy's going to be more grounded in the relationship. Excellent. Realizing that it's so up in the air is very scary. It creates all of those uncertainties. I like the idea of not trying to find what the harbingers will be, what the signs are. Whoever will be my next romantic partner, it's got to be so much more than that chemistry, that connection, the fluttering in my belly. Can they make me feel safe, essentially sharing my body with them? And that is going to matter far more than what is your physique, what's between your legs, because both sets of genitalia have made me feel violated, who've made me feel used. I want the person who, when the clothes come off, I feel safe in that nakedness. I do not feel objectified or commodified, or I have to watch out because they're going to see what they can take from me. The ongoing joke of what is the queer dating world, but a bunch of people standing around wondering if it's a hangout or a date. And it is so hard to exactly pinpoint what makes it the friendship connection versus what makes it the romantic connection. I have some of the most profound platonic love in my life. And I would say one of the most common questions I will get is, oh, you guys dating? Especially if one or both of us are single. And to that, I will say it's because the love is a platonic love. And there's nothing wrong with a love being platonic love. It doesn't have to be a just platonic love. For me, I need to know that if someone's my friend, they're my friend. They're not finding their in and then hoping that they can sneak in something sexual or sneak in dating me, because that was an issue for so long with men. Platonic love can be just as vulnerable and therefore just as damaging as that romantic love. I have become very protective of who is allowed into this inner circle of vulnerability. But I also have no interest in keeping them in my circle if they are showing that they're not treating the access to me as a gift. And that's not to say that, people should be like groveling on the ground to get a scrap of my attention. But if I've invited you into my life, even as a friend, that is something that should be respected. And if you are not respecting that level of vulnerability from me, that's okay. But you are now asked to leave the building. Romantic love has its purposes and platonic love has its purposes. And There are different flavors of the same family of emotions. It's the same way that there's familial love, and familial love is in the same categories as platonic love and romantic love, but it is its own distinct category. I think the reason why I'm as good of a writer these days is because that was the thing that kept me afloat, is being able to put words to my experiences and being able to write out my feelings. I don't realize that not everybody can do that until people tell me that I'm putting words to experiences they didn't have words for before. But I think my ability is the thing that kept my head above water. My words undeniably saved me. I would absolutely love to become that well-established, that well-known, that New York Times bestseller list kind of author. I would love to be able to keep building up on this writing world that has been my one constant since I've been a child, is this love of writing. And it would be really, really cool to see that world expand to becoming that kind of author, becoming the one whose book is in more homes than not. Like, that would be really freaking cool, because it means people are being influenced by my words. And I think that's always been something that matters to me. Are my words influencing people? Whether that's words on the written page, words on my TikToks, words with people in real life one-on-one. Are my words making them feel validated in their experiences? Is it making them look at things differently? Sometimes I forget that it's a gift, but it's a gift that I was given. It would be really cool to see that, to have this widespread impact. That would just be really, really wonderful. I know for me, I have to be very careful with the what ifs, because man, that is a rabbit hole. What if I didn't grow up in such a homophobic environment? What if I grew up in an environment that encouraged the spectrum of sexuality versus you are straight? But also, what if you grew up in a stable household? What if you grew up with a sober father? What if you grew up with a mom whose brain wasn't rapidly deteriorating on you? There's a lot of what ifs that, if I am not careful, I can really drive myself insane, because there is no denying that if I lived in a world where I was allowed to just let my sexuality be, as opposed to, can you conform to straightness because obviously you're straight, she would have an easier life. There's a quote from A Night at the Museum where Ben Stiller's character says, "I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow." And Robin Williams' character goes, "How exciting. I want to live in that energy. I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow. How exciting."